Welcome to our exploration of a deeply provocative question. Is climate change being used as a political tool, prioritizing power over the planet? In today's video, we'll dissect how climate change has morphed into a catalyst for expanding government control, redistributing wealth, and fostering corporate political alliances. We'll also examine the implications of fear-based narratives, censorship, and the intricate web of surveillance that accompanies these strategies. Join us as we navigate these complex issues to uncover the interplay between environmental policy and political ambition. 1. Ways climate change is used as a political tool. Climate change discussions have become fertile ground for political maneuvering. While the pressing environmental issues are undeniable, the motives behind some climate policies have been questioned. Many believe that the climate agenda is increasingly intertwined with political strategies aimed at consolidating power and influence. This has led to a complex dialogue where environmental concerns are sometimes overshadowed by political agendas. 2. Expanding government control. A noticeable trend is the expansion of government control under the guise of climate action. Policies designed to curb emissions often result in increased government intervention in industries, personal lives, and economic activities. For instance, regulations on carbon emissions might require businesses to adhere to strict guidelines, potentially stifling innovation. On a personal level, mandates on energy consumption can dictate how individuals manage their daily lives. While these measures aim to protect the environment, they also pave the way for governments to exert more influence over citizens' choices, raising questions about the balance between environmental responsibility and personal freedom. 3. Redistribution of wealth. Climate agreements and carbon taxes often involve the redistribution of wealth from developed nations to developing ones. This can be seen in initiatives where wealthier countries are expected to fund climate mitigation projects in less affluent regions. While this approach appears altruistic, critics argue that the funds are not always used for genuine climate action. Instead, they may become tools for political leverage, influencing global economic dynamics. The redistribution of wealth under the climate banner can also lead to tensions, as nations grapple with questions of fairness and accountability. 4. Corporate and political alliances. The collaboration between governments and major corporations in crafting climate policies has raised eyebrows. These alliances can lead to monopolies and favoritism, particularly in industries like renewable energy and electric vehicles. When governments endorse specific companies or technologies, it can stifle competition and innovation. The intertwining of corporate interests with political agendas means that climate policies might serve the interests of a few rather than the broader good. This dynamic encourages skepticism about whether environmental goals are truly at the forefront of these alliances. 5. Censorship of dissenting opinions. Dissenting opinions on climate policies are often met with strong resistance. Those who question the mainstream narrative, even with scientific backing, are frequently labeled as deniers. This labeling can exclude them from important discussions, limiting the scope of debate. The absence of open dialogue stifles the exploration of diverse solutions to climate challenges. As a result, the conversation around climate change becomes one-sided, potentially overlooking innovative approaches that might arise from a more inclusive discourse. 6. Surveillance and social control. Proposals like personal carbon footprints, digital IDs, and ESG scores introduce new dimensions of surveillance and social control. These measures, while designed to monitor and reduce environmental impact, could lead to increased tracking of individual behavior. The implications of such surveillance are profound, as they touch upon personal privacy and autonomy. The potential for misuse of this data by both governments and corporations is a concern, as it could lead to restrictions on personal freedoms under the pretext of environmental responsibility. 7. Use of fear-based narratives. The media's portrayal of climate change often relies heavily on fear-based narratives. Constant coverage of climate catastrophes, without room for nuanced discussion, fuels public anxiety. This heightened sense of urgency can justify extreme policy measures that may not always be the most effective solutions. By focusing primarily on worst-case scenarios, the media may inadvertently narrow the scope of the discussion, leaving little room for alternative viewpoints or approaches that could contribute to a more balanced understanding of the issue. 8. Energy dependence and economic manipulation. Policies that limit domestic energy production while increasing reliance on foreign resources introduce a layer of complexity to the climate debate. Such policies can create geopolitical power imbalances, where nations become dependent on others for energy needs. This dependence can be manipulated for economic or political gain, further complicating international relations. The interplay between energy policies and economic interests illustrates the multifaceted nature of climate discussions, where environmental goals intersect with complex global dynamics. 9. Restriction of personal freedom. Proposed regulations on travel, diet, and home energy use highlight the potential restriction of personal freedoms. For instance, suggestions to limit meat consumption or regulate travel choices place more control in the hands of policymakers. While these measures aim to reduce environmental impact, they also raise concerns about individual autonomy. The challenge lies in finding a balance between promoting sustainable practices and respecting personal choices, a balance that is often at the heart of the climate debate. 10. Election strategy and political leverage. Climate issues have become powerful tools in election strategies. Candidates often use climate platforms to rally specific voter bases, painting opponents as anti-science or anti-progress. This approach can polarize the electorate, turning climate discussions into battlegrounds for political gain. While climate action is undoubtedly important, the use of these issues as political leverage can overshadow genuine efforts to address environmental challenges, reducing complex issues to mere campaign slogans. 11. Global governance aspirations. Climate treaties and organizations are increasingly pushing for centralized global decision-making. These efforts aim to create cohesive strategies for addressing climate change on a global scale. However, they also raise concerns about reducing national sovereignty and transferring power to unelected international bodies. The aspiration for global governance reflects the complexity of climate issues, where the need for international collaboration must be balanced with respect for individual nations' autonomy.